Akadosh Boker or Masechet Batra Daf Yomi Daf Kufayin Hey Amud Aleph 175a1. We were talking about right now the entire concept that a person many times will change things in order not to show that he is rich or that his children are rich. So the Gemara says Miklal de Rav Shmuel de Lona Kitchtara. So it comes out that we could be midayek that according to Rav and Shmuel we're talking about that the person does not have a shtar, and therefore it says Amar Tenu. If he said Tenu that we're going to give it, meaning if the Shechina comes and he says give it, no Trim they're going to give it. Mil ve'al pe'ava, but that's considered a mil ve'al pe. Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayu and Rav Shmuel both of them say mil ve'al pe eno govelu mirushim lekukot. A mil ve'al pe is never going to collect not from the Yerushim or not from the lekuchot. So says the Gemara, Elam Rav Nachman, but rather Rav Nachman comes and he says, Idi ve'idi. Really, be'emeh, we're talking about the nakid shtara. He does have a document. Ve'lakashia, and it's not a question. It says, why is it not a question? He says, "Had mekuyam ve'ad lo mekuyam." Everything depends whether it's going to be mekuyam or not mekuyam. Mekuyam means that it's going to be validated or not validated. Everything depends on that, right? It means if the document is going to be validated, that's one halakha. And if it's not validated, it's different halakha. So he comes and he says, "Amar tenu." If he said right now tenu, which means to give it, so came elishtare. So then he was mekayem the shtar because the fact that he said give it means that the document was good. Lo amar tenu, if he did not say tenu, lo kiyem elishtare. He did not was mekayem the shtar. Okay. Amar Rabba. Rabba says something very similar. Shriv Menashe Amar. A Shriv Menashe that comes and he says, Maneh leploni biyadi. That I've got a maneh in my hand, and then the guy died. V'amare yitomim v'amir to be the yitomim say, Paranu, we paid it back already. Ne'emanim, they are going to be believed. Tenu maneh leploni, right? V'amru yitomim paranu, en emanim. If he says, give the maneh leploni, and they say that they paid it off, en emanim, they're not going to be believed. So says the Gemara, klapelaya. What are we talking about exactly? So he says, ibcha misabra, the exact opposite is more logical. Amar tenumane, if he said tenumane leploni, kevan de paskav won leminta, since the father said this is the psak, as if to say, ika lememar de pare, I'm going to say that he probably paid it back. Mane leploni biadi, but if he says mane leploni biadi, kevan de lo paskav won leminta, since they did not come and give a psak, ika lememar de lo pare, I'm going to say that he didn't actually come and pay it back. Meaning, if he comes and he says tenu, he's giving you a psak. What does it mean give, right? Tenu, give it. Then maybe you already paid it off. But if he just says, yeah, I have it, maybe you didn't pay it back. But this is the way you're supposed to read it, really. That comes and he says, and he dies, right? Which means that I have a maneh, meaning I have got 100 zuz of this guy. The Yitomim say chazar, right? That the father himself said that he paid it back. Then they're going to be believed. My time, what's the reasoning? No, why? He said at the beginning, the guy comes and he says, I owe $100. And then the Yitomim come to us afterwards. They say, by the way, you should know, right before his death, he came and he said that he paid it off. So in such a case, they're going to be believed. My time, what's the reasoning? It could be mitkar, because it could be that he just remembered that he just paid it up. Meaning at the beginning, he's just saying, by the way, these are the last things before he dies. And also he says, then you know what? I just remember, I paid that up. So he says it. They're believed. Yeah, they're going to be believed in such a case. So he says, right, as follows. So he says, why they? He says, "Gormitka tenuna leploni." But if they say, "Give the money leploni," v'amari yutomim, and then the yutomim come and they say, "Chazar v'amalanova parati," that it did pay it back, and they're not going to be believed. Why? Din ita, but if it's going to happen, the par'e, right, that they actually came and they paid it back, lo avamar tenu, they would not say tenu. Yeah, fine. By Rava. Rava comes and he asks the following question. Shkiv merah sheodah. When you have a shkiv merah that comes and he was modeh, what does that mean? He was modeh in front of a din that he still chayav the money. What's halacha? Tzarich lomar, does he have to say atem edai? Does he have to say that you guys are my witnesses? Or when tzarich lomar atem edai, you do not have to say that these are my witnesses. So says the Gemara, tzarich sheomar, he has to tell them ketovu, write the document. Or she'en tzarich lomar ketovu, or he doesn't have to say that. Right? So the Gemara is going to explain the two different sides of the safek. Adam meshateh b'shat mita, right? Or en Adam meshateh, meaning, does the person come and is he like, becoming as if to say that he's not 100% there during the time of death, and therefore you have to be miyached edim? Or do we say no, that he doesn't have to be miyached edim? So Batra the buyer hadar pashta. So after he came and he asked the question, he answered as follows: And a person will never come and start joking around during the time of death. Therefore, the words of the Shrimera are as if that he already wrote and he gave it. So it doesn't have to come, right? So that's why it's ki'ilu, he already said kitvu utznu. Right? Why? Because it's already ki'ilu, a done deal. And there's nothing what to talk about. Fine. Mishnah, the bottom of Kufa in Hamud Aleph. The Mishnah says, Hamalvet chavero bishtar. If a person comes and he's going to lend out money with a document, he's going to collect with nechasim meshubadim. If it's going to be alidei edim, it's only going to be govim nechasim nechorim. So the difference between with a document or with witnesses, if it's going to be with a document, so therefore he could collect from subjugated, from properties that have a lien on it, right? Which means afterwards, if afterwards, right now, he sold the field or whatever it is, doesn't matter. You could collect from it. Why? Because you have a shtar against it. But if it was just going to be through witnesses and there's no shtar, then it has to be only nechasim b'nei chorim. Kufa in Hamud Bet, right? 175b. If he took out a ktav yad means that it's his own writing that he owes the money. Shu chayav lo. Govem nechasim b'nei chorim. He's also only going to come and collect from nechasim b'nei chorim. Okay, fine. Arev. What about now an arev? Arev yotze leachar chitum shtarot. When an arev is going to come out after chitum shtarot, govem nechasim b'nei chorim is going to collect nechasim b'nei chorim. Maaseh uba, there was a story that came in front of Rabbi Ishmael, and they said govem nechasim b'nei chorim. Amar lo benanas, says benanas, eno gove, he cannot collect not from nechasim meshubadim, not nechasim b'nei chorim of the arev. Amar lo, he says, why? Lama? Amar lo, he says, harei achoneket echad bashuk. ומצאו חברו, ואמר לו, הנח לו, ואני אתן לך. Imagine right now, somebody's coming, and he's like strangling the loveh in the shuk, right? And the third guy comes and he tells him, hey, leave him, I'm going to pay you. He's going to be patur. שלא על אמונתו סילבאו, because he didn't do it on the emunah of that, אלא איזו ערב שהוא חייב, what is the ערב that he's going to be חייב? הלווהו ואני נותן לך שחייב. שכן אמונתו הלווהו. Meaning this, you remember yesterday we spoke about a concept. The alva'ah, in order for a person to be an arev, it has to be done at the time of the alva'ah. If it's not going to be done at the time of the alva'ah, so he didn't lend him the money because you were the arev. So here, imagine right now, you find somebody in the shuk. He's killing the guy. Why? He didn't pay him back. So you kind of said, no, leave him alone. I'll pay you back. Right? Do you really become an arev? You don't become an arev. So what's going on? So he says, right, in such a case, right, you're going to be patur. The arev is not, he doesn't do anything. Why? Because he didn't lend him the money because of you. Right? It was just done afterwards. So therefore, you cannot collect anything from the arev. Rabbi Ishmael says, Rabbi Ishmael, if a person wants to be smart, he has to learn dinei mamonot. Because there's nothing in the Torah greater than dinei mamonot. Because it's something which is like a mayana springs that just continues going forth. And if somebody wants to be osek be'dinei mamonot, right? So he's going to be a shamesh Shimon ben Anas. Shimon ben Anas was a very, very big expert. And by the way, you should know this is very, very true because dinei mamonot is very, very vast. Choshen mishpat is not like this simple thing. It's not simple logic, right? It's mamash. A person has to delve deep into it. So therefore, if a person wants to become smart, he's going to be osek b'dinei mamonot. Says the Gemara. Gemara Kufa in Hamud Bet. Amar Ula says, Devar Torah echad milveh b'shtar ve'echad milveh al peh goveh menechasim meshubadim. Do you know the mitzad of Torah? It doesn't matter whether it's going to be a milveh b'shtar or milveh al peh. You always have to collect from nechasim meshubadim. Always. My time, what's the reasoning? Shibuda doraita, because the shibud is doraita, meaning that midin Torah, the obligation to pay is not going to be just on the body, also on its properties. Meaning when you borrow something, it's not just on you, it's on everything that you own that is going to be subjugated as well. That is mitzad the Torah. So why did they say that milva al pero govim mechasim inochanim? It says we should say that the lekuchot, because it says because of the chashash that the lekuchot are going to lose out. Meaning you're going to have people that are going to come and they're going to buy lands. Now they don't know anything about it because it's a milva al peh. It was something that not people talk about. It wasn't a document that went through lawyers and went through. It was time you had two people. That's it. Milva al peh. So therefore, he says in such a case, because of Satan the Kuchot, they instituted that they're not going to come, they're not going to lose out. So therefore, it's only Menechasim Menechorim. If so, Milve Beshtar Nami. He says, 1 second. But Milve Beshtar, also the same thing then. You should say you should only collect from Nechasim Menechorim. So he says, no, Hatam Inu Niu, right? Dafsidu Nafshayu. He says, there, to do the Milve Beshtar, the Lekuchot are the ones that are losing out, right? Because they purchased by Nechasim that they actually had that was already Mishuban, meaning if you know that there's a document on it, that's it. You were the one that made yourself lose. So it's your fault. It's not anybody else's fault. Rav Amar, but Rabba comes and he says, no. Devar Torah really be'emet, right? The opposite. You could only collect from Nechasim and Nechorim. So why? Maitama, Shibuda lav Doraita. Because really be'emet, Shibuda is not Doraita. Meaning that the Doraita, it's only you. You become an LLC, I think it's called. No, you're, what?
Body.
It's only in the body. So he says, Zumata, so why do they say that Milva Bishtar going to Nechasim and Shubadim? Because if not, nobody will lend out money. Why? Because imagine right now, you're going to come, because I don't have money to pay you. Yeah, but you have properties. Oh, sorry, it's not subjugated to you. And I already sold them all. I was very, very smart. Sold them all. What? So therefore what? We don't want to close the door on people. So since we don't want to come and close the door on people, they say you could collect from the Nechasim Mishubadim. So says the Gemara, Ihachi, if so Milva pay also. So he said, no, Hatam over there, lekala, there's no voice. There's no rumor. There's no... When you do something which is a milvel pestam, I lend you money over the mouth, and there's no documents, no nothing. So it's something very, very quick. Nobody hears about it. Since nobody hears about it, so therefore it's going to be something completely different. Okay? Fine. So he comes and he says like this. He says as follows. Does Rabbi actually say this? Rabbi actually says, Gavu karka. If right now the Yoshim came and they collected the karka, right, as a piraon, right, as a payment, Yeshlo, right? So therefore he says the Bechor gets Pishnayim, because that's considered Muchzak. Gavu Ma'ot, if they collected money, so Enlo. So then he does not get Pishnayim. Remember, we already learned Ilchot Nachalot. There was in, right, Yeshlo Chalin. In Batra, we learned Alachot of Nachalot. A Bechor takes double portion. But a Bechor takes double portion only in something which is Muchzak, not in something which is Ra'ui. Muchzak means that you have like a chazakah in it. It's in your hands. It's something strong. Ra'ui means that it's fitting to come in the future, but not that it's right now in your hands. So he says, if right now comes and the Yoshim collected karka, so therefore it's considered muchzak. Once it's muchzak, the bechor could take double portion. But if right now they collected money, money is something which is ra'ui. So ra'ui, the bechor does not take double portions. So from the fact that Rabba is teaching you that they came and they collected karka, so therefore, we're going to say that shibud is doraita. How do you collect karka? Oh, you could only collect karka if it's a shibuda doraita, not shibud lav doraita, because that means that it wasn't only your body that was subjugated; it was even your properties. Now he says, maybe I'm going to switch it. Ula is the one that says shibud lav doraita, and Rabba is the one that says doraita. So I'm going to switch it. Ve'amar Ula is the one that says the Torah balchov dine beziburit. Ula is the one that says the balchov. He always collects from Ziburit. You remember we learned a few times already who collects what. So he said there's going to be a balchov. A balchov is going to collect from the worst, from the inferior type of a property. We're not talking about that you're going to collect more in value, but it just, where do you collect from? You remember we spoke about whether it's going to be Surfside, right? Whether it's going to be Biscayne Point, or whether it's going to be, right, Opaloka. So where are you going to collect from? So we come and we say if it's going to be Ziburit, it's okay. So you're going to come and you're going to collect from Opaloka. If it's going to be Benonit, right? So the right kitzvahs. So therefore, you're going to collect from basically. If it's going to be given from the right, you look at the prices, right? That's the biggest raya. You look at the prices. So what is it? It's going to be the idit, the best part. So he comes and he says, if right now Ula is the one that says that the Dvar Torah balchov dine beziburit, that the balchov, right? The din is going to be beziburit. So therefore, he says it's a different halacha. So Rabba tamad Rava kamar. Right? He says Rabba, he's only mentioning the... Yeah, please, another shiur outside, not here. Tamad ibn Marava Kamar, here the reasoning of Ibn Marava of Eretz Israel, he's only mentioning the reasoning of Eretz Israel. But he doesn't hold of it. Meaning, he himself does not hold of this. So therefore, Rabba is just mentioning, this is what the halacha is according to them. But I don't actually hold of this. Right? And that's what he's saying. I don't actually hold of such a thing. Yeah? Rav Shmuel Damnu Tarvayu. Rav and Shmuel come and they both say, Mil ve'alpe eno gove. So he's not going to collect, not from the Yerushim and not from the Leku Chot. My tama, what's the reasoning? Shibud alav doraita. Rabbi Yochanan and Shibud Krishna Batra Daf right govin ben shibud ben lekufot. My tama shibud doraita. So now it comes out actually something incredible. We just had a machloke between Rabba and Ula. Let's take it now to the next step. The Acharonim later on, Rav and Shmuel said that shibuda lav doraita. But then on the other hand, you had Rabbi Yochanan and Shakish coming and saying shibuda doraita. So therefore, you see that this is actually going to come down a machloket, even one step down. So it comes out the same machloket between Rabba and Ula is now going to be the same machloket between Rav and Shmuel against Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. So Meitvei, so they're going to ask the following question: Achofer bor b'shut rabim and afalalav shor varago. Imagine right now somebody's digging a pit in the Reshut Rabim. Now the guy's in the pit, he's digging this pit, and all of a sudden a shor comes by and he squashes him. He kills him. He's going to be patur, right? Why? Right? It's obviously basically when the shor came and he killed, right? He had no permission of digging this pit. So the fact that he was the one that caused his own death. So since he was the one that caused his own death, so therefore obviously that's going to happen. Velo od, and not only that, right? Velo od, and not only that, he says, but even more than that. If the shor dies, so then they have to pay him. Not only is the Bala Shor patur for killing this guy, but since he didn't have the permission to dig it, so for but if the ox dies, they have to pay the Bala Shor back money, the Yorshim. So Amar Bila, Amarav, the Shamad Badin. We're talking about where the Chofer Bor was a Mabadin, and he's obligated to pay the short of the money. And he didn't have enough time to pay until he died. Only in that case do we say that there's going to be a psak of the Badin that is going to tell him that he has to come and he has to pay, right? Because if not, then no. So says the Gemara, how could you say that? What was the case? One more time. The guy's digging a pit, a shor came, and he fell in the pit, and he killed him. Now, if he killed him, what's the pshat that the shor also died, and therefore the guy, which was the one that was murdered, or not murdered because it wasn't the purpose, but meaning the guy that was killed, he appeared in Bedin, he had enough time to be chayav to pay, and that's what we're talking about. I thought we just said that he died. Yeah, the man died, and then we said also the shor died, right? So says the Gemara, you're right. What? The shor. So Amar Rav Ada bar Ava, right? Not court him. The ox fell into the pit and he killed him. Yeah. Yeah. So he says, Amar Rav Ada bar Ava says Rav Ada bar Ava, Shasao terefa. He comes and he says he made him into a terefa, meaning that he didn't die on the spot. He made him into a terefa. Obviously, we know a terefa is going to die within the year, and therefore that's why. So he was still able to come back into the bedin, and therefore they testified about him. They testified about him in the bedin that basically because of him, right? That it was because of him that the shor died, and now, right? And then after he was basically Ahmad bedin and he was going to be chayav. Now he died because remember he was made into a terefa. So for he was going to die anyway, but it just depends how long. Okay. So says the Gemara, Rav Nachman says, Tani Tana, metu kvaro. I don't understand you. I thought that it meant that basically because of the shor actually, ki'ilu, when he fell on him, he actually buried him alive. It's ki'ilu mamash that he was gone. So how do you now come and say that we took this guy into Bedin and we testified about him, that he's going to be now chayav to pay for the shor? What's the case? So says the Gemara, Hatam diyat v'dayne apuma debira. The Dayanim are already on the outskirts of the bor. They chiyavu. So right before he died, they went and said, by the way, you're chayav to pay him. Right? You're chayav. The Amar of Papa comes and he says, Hilchata, what is halacha? Milve. Alpe gove min al-yoshin, ve'eno gove min al-lekuchot. If it's going to be balpe, so any type of a loan which is going to be balpe, the yoshim are going to come and they're going to collect. Right? You could collect from the yoshim, you cannot collect from the lekuchot. Gove min al-yoshin kedei. Why do you collect from yoshin? In order that you're not going to close the door on lenders. Because nobody wants to lend out money. But you're not going to come and go from the lekuchot, the lekala, because there's not going to be a call. Okay? We're by the two dots.